I did not have a lot of capital kan, but I was really proactive and hungry. So I think that beats anybody with a huge capital, anything. Sempat wawancara timnya gitu kan. Sempat sampai pura-pura ada tugas untuk tahu nih resepnya apa. Saya dari tugas dari kampus nih, saya pengen tahu ini penjualan berapa dan apa nggak ada. Segitunya gitu, karena pengen tahu nih, mau bedah gitu kan, deconstruct the business and stuff. Karena modalnya 8 juta gitu. Tapi itu yang paling menghasilkan dari all the businesses that I have, yang modalnya bisa miliaran. Jadi bagaimana 8 juta bisa menghasilkan sales yang paling besar gitu. Rasa bersalahnya di mana? Karena waktu itu, ini nama es Indonesia, tapi kok top selling item kita kok Thai tea gitu. What's going on nih? Kita salah nih. Ini nggak boleh kayak gini nih.
Hi, it's Gian and this is Mind of a Builder, decoding the minds of those that dreamt and built.
Welcome to Mind of a Builder, and today we're decoding the mind of Haidar Wurjanto, serial entrepreneur and founder of many brands such as Momo Milk, Reindeer Coffee, Paddle Life, and most notably, Es Teh Indonesia. Mas Haidar grew up in New Zealand, and once he came back in high school, he became a serial entrepreneur from day one, building many brands up and down, but then finally making his breakthrough and scaling brands across Indonesia, including Es Teh. He's more than just an entrepreneur, he's a brand builder, scaling brands nationwide. Welcome to Mind of a Builder, Mas Haidar.
Nice intro. Did you memorize that? Wow. Wow, I thought was there a script? Gak ada ya? Gila.
Mungkin mulai dari awal. Tadi kan aku juga sebut bahwa Mas Haidar sebenarnya dari SMA udah jadi pengusaha. You sold pulsa kalau nggak salah.
Yes.
Accessories BlackBerry, nasi goreng, makanan Jepang, crepes.
Right.
The entrepreneurship gene or bug. Mungkin bisa cerita dikit hidupnya Mas Haidar pas masih kecil, pas masih growing up. What was your influence? What was your ecosystem like? Your family and who influenced you? And how did you start this entrepreneurship journey, Mas Haidar?
Right. So I think it started when I felt that I was a minority in Christchurch, New Zealand. Kan, probably one of the only Indonesians in primary school. My dad had his master's and doctor's degree in Christchurch, New Zealand. And so I was a minority, and the feeling of being different than other students in the class. It always made me want to prove something. That feeling gitu dari kecil gitu. And then once we settled in, SMP balik lagi ke Indonesia gitu. And again, I felt like a minority karena bahasa Indonesia belum lancar, apa. Jadi it's always trying to prove something because I feel that I'm always a minority gitu. I think that what sparked the entrepreneurial gene gitu. Apalagi terus masuk ke SMA, masuk ke sekolah swasta di Madania gitu, and definitely I had friends who were economically, financially more, they had more access to more lavish lifestyle kan. So, and jadi satu-satunya juga waktu itu punya teman SMA, punya rumah di Sentul gede banget, segede PIM kali ya. Enggak sih, that's just exaggerating, tapi gede banget rumahnya. Terus bapaknya tuh selalu ada di rumah gitu. And tanya, bokap lo kerja apa sih gitu? Kok rumah lo gede banget, bokap lo di rumah terus gitu. Enak banget gitu ya. And then, karena waktu itu bapakku, beliau seorang pekerja keras gitu kan. Pelajar yang super keras. Terus he's in government as well. He works extra hard. I did not have that relationship that was like father and son, we hang out and stuff, nggak ada, karena he was always working, he was a workaholic, keren banget. Tapi what I saw that I did not have in my friend's dad and her sorry, it's a her, her financial accessibility itu yang akhirnya aku mau kejar. Gue mau kejar itu gitu. Pada akhirnya gimana cara punya kayak jadi bapaknya enak ya gitu ya. Uangnya gede, uangnya banyak, terus juga ada waktu buat keluarga gitu. So there was one thing that I was keen on pursuing gitu kan. Sebelumnya mau jadi dokter, tapi once I knew that ini kok bapaknya bisa gede gini, profesinya apa? Aku tanya kan. Oh, my dad's a businessman gitu. Businessman apa? Kok bisa kok di rumah gitu? Ya, the money works for him gitu. Sampai sekarang nggak tahu bisnisnya apa, tapi dia di rumah nyantai, rumahnya gede banget, terus dari situlah langsung berubah tuh. Tadi mau jadi dokter, langsung fokus ke entrepreneurship. And at that time, it was 2007. I did not think we had the internet ya, tapi belum ada ChatGPT atau apapun kayak sekarang ya. So it started from there. Kita coba bangun, and me feeling as always as a minority in life, I try to stand out. Coba kayaknya gue fokus, gue yakinin diri sendiri gitu. Gue coba aja gitu, jualan apapun yang bisa gue jual. Yang penting pertama jangan malu dulu deh jualan pulsa gitu. Akhirnya jualan pulsa. Jangan malu dulu deh jualan gerobakan masakan Jepang gitu. Jadi funny story was umur 17 ditanya mau ada ulang tahun apa gitu. Nggak usah deh, mendingan modalnya untuk bikin franchise di koran ada franchise masakan Jepang, bento-bentoan kayak Hokben, porsi gerobak, jualan di belakang rumah, di perumahan belakang gitu. It was good. Day 1 was 800,000. Day 2 was no. So yeah, that's business. And from that moment, tapi walaupun pada akhirnya bangkrut, tapi it was I felt a click, and I felt that this is something that I can do for the rest of my life. I think I'll pursue this, and I enjoy this. And pada akhirnya ya, as you mentioned in your intro, ada Momo Milk, akhirnya ada Paddle, ada sekarang Este and Reindeer and yeah, everything else gitu.
Pas masih umur 16 ya, 2007, 16 atau 17, itu pas masih semuda itu atau masih SMA itu, how do you even, kan akhirnya bikin gerobak yang jual makanan Jepang atau jualan ini atau jualan pulsa, itu mulainya dari mana? Dan Mas Haidar walaupun mikirnya nggak malu, itu were you instinctively scared atau were you worried atau did you know what to do? How did you figure things out, Mas Haidar?
One thing I learned about entrepreneurship is just not to overthink. Dibahas juga di bukunya Blink kan, intuition gitu kan.
Intuition.
Because me as a minority ngerasanya ini udahlah, if you want to stand out, you gotta do things differently.
Yep.
And my classmates, they weren't selling credit atau pulsa gitu. They weren't selling masakan Jepang. I think it's some way, a way that I can stand out is to be different, and I can just try to sell masakan Jepang atau crepes di gerobak, and there was no fear at all. It was just coba dulu aja, masuk aja deh, gas aja dulu gitu kan.
How did your parents react to you trying to do these businesses?
They were very supportive. My mom definitely was one of the support system. Ayo, bagus, lanjutin gitu. And what I think, dan banyak ya, dari pulsa, masakan Jepang, gerobak crepes, aksesoris BlackBerry that you mentioned, nasi goreng di tendaan gitu, bertiga gitu, banyak. Tapi what I think about going from business to business is it's some sort of tuition fee untuk belajar gitu, buat progress. Jadi I think don't look at the end result, but the process that I went through from failure to tapi it's a tuition fee that I think it's very valuable for me. Yeah.
Got it. Dan tuition fee dan juga ekosistem penting ya, walaupun bapaknya Mas Haidar juga backgroundnya mungkin bukan entrepreneur atau ibunya Mas Haidar, tapi mereka tetap mendukung kegiatannya Mas Haidar. Nah itu kan pas SMA, terus kita flash forward ke pas kuliah di IPB, Mas Haidar. you started. In the end, you built many brands, tapi
Yeah.
maybe safe to say your first breakthrough was Momo Milk. Bisa
Yes.
cerita nggak konteksnya pas Mas Haidar lagi kuliah? How did you create the concept or figure out the concept,
Yeah.
and why did you, once you've already gotten the entrepreneurship experience pas SMA tadi,
Yeah.
was it addicting? Gue udah coba sekali atau beberapa kali, walaupun mungkin belum yang besar. This is something that I have to do even in the next stage of my life.
Good question. Definitely it is addicting. Even though I closed down the shops, tapi it's always trying to, create something bigger gitu. Kuliah pun juga sama gitu. I actually wanted not to go to college atau uni, tapi syarat orang-orang tua kan, lulus S1 dulu deh gitu kan. Jadi sebenarnya dulu kuliah di Prasmul, Prastia Mulia.
Yep.
Tapi karena waktu itu bapak di Jambi, ibu di Bogor, udah coba deh cari kampus dekat Bogor, akhirnya pindah ke IPB.
Got it.
And I didn't care where I went to college atau ke uni gitu. Yang penting syarat lulus S1. So my mind was always in what can I create bigger than before. Masuk kuliah pun juga the end goal in mind was to be a job creator. Ketika lulus itu udah tahu di awal masuk kuliah. Jadi I did not care about academics. I did not care about doing well secara akademis ya. But I just wanted to create something, and I did not know what it was. Definitely it was in the F&B sector, tapi nggak tahu apa gitu.
Yep.
Kenapa Momo Milk? Awalnya tuh gara-gara di kampus IPB itu ada satu minimarket kampus gitu yang jualan susu murni gitu. Datangnya dari Fakultas Peternakan. Terus kok perhatiin gitu, sekeliling kok banyak banget yang minum susu murni yang rasa strawberry, coklat gitu. Kok menarik ya gitu ya. Akhirnya mampir ke Vapet. Terus sempat wawancara timnya gitu kan. Sempat sampai pura-pura ada tugas untuk tahu nih resepnya apa. Saya dari tugas dari kampus nih. Saya pengen tahu ini penjualannya berapa dan apa nggak ada. Segitunya gitu. Karena pengen tahu nih, mau lihat nih, mau bedah gitu kan. Mau deconstruct the business and stuff. Oh gini bahannya ini gitu kan. Akhirnya coba deh. Terus buka di Bogor. Terus buka lagi mini cafe-nya. Long story short, bikin juga restorannya gitu. It was a huge success. Dan makin kuat lagi dan makin yakin lagi ya, this is a path I want to pursue.
Wow.
Gitu.
Waktu itu kan Mas Haidar juga pas masih kuliah, I guess umur 20-an gitu ya,
Yeah.
mungkin 19 atau 20. Belajar teknis administrasi kan sebenarnya bikin usaha kan bukan hanya walaupun pada prinsipnya kan gue jual barang terus harus profit, tapi kan ada hal-hal lain, bikin PT atau ada administrasi A atau B itu kan masih muda banget kan, umur 19, umur 20.
Yeah.
Itu cari solusi, cari informasi itu waktu itu kayak gimana Mas Haidar, dan how to figure stuff out gitu sebagai bukan hanya entrepreneur tapi as a leader or business runner gitu Mas Haidar.
Yeah. I think what was the key factor was I was really hungry and proactive. Gitu. I did not have a lot of capital kan, but I was really proactive and hungry. So I think that beats anybody with a huge capital. Anything. Kalau lo udah proaktif, lo udah hungry, I think apapun lo bisa, lo akan lakuin gitu. So I did not have capital. I joined HIPMI. Senior semua kan, dan ada yang punya tempat, ada yang jadi notaris. I asked around. Of course, I was baking things, nggak ngerti, gagalnya banyak. It was tuition fee again gitu kan. And I was very reflective. Jadi for me, progress is actually failing and reflection, and that equals to progress. That's what I believe in. Jadi salah apa ya? Cuman mikir gitu. oke, salahnya di sini gitu. Finances juga nggak ngerti gitu. Tapi one thing for sure, ya thank God ya, maksudnya sangat bersyukur adalah I know my weaknesses and my strengths dari awal gitu. Gue emang males banget nih soal hitung-hitungan akuntansi dan P&L, so I get somebody else to do it gitu.
Yeah.
Because dulu ada siapa ya motivator yang ngomong business is all about leveraging on what you have gitu. Misalkan you don't have capital, ya you gotta use other people's money gitu. You don't have the skill, you use other people's skill gitu. Jadi ya back again itu pada akhirnya ya it's like managing people and you know what to do with people with what skill to have. And what you lack in one department, you have to be good in one department. I did not have the capital, but I did have network, and I had to create network because I didn't know how to have the money. But then again, what fueled me was the grit, the hunger, and the vision and the proactiveness. Itu yang akhirnya, I think, discipline beats capital any day.
Discipline and hunger.
Yeah.
I want to get to the concept of capital and juga the tuition fee notion juga. Tapi mungkin sebelum itu tadi Mas Haidar juga ngomong tentang failing and reflection equals progress ya. Setiap kali fail dalam tanda kutip, what makes you want to recover and how do you recover? Karena kita kan ya nama judul podcastnya Mind of a Builder, tapi building is not just building a company, tapi mungkin dalam perjalanan sebagai pengusaha, it's also about building yourself. Dan setiap kali jatuh, kita harus bangun dirinya lagi. How do you do that gitu?
Great question. Tapi instinctively ya, ini alhamdulillahnya ya. Every time I fail, I don't feel fear atau apapun.
Wow.
I'm just so sure about myself. I'm really confident that the next journey I take would be a great journey and would end greatly. Sesimpel itu sih, kayak bahkan sekarang juga masih ada rasa gagalnya juga, bisnis yang coba ini gagal. Tapi mungkin pas sekarang ini pas coba dipikir ya, I do not overthink that much.
Wow.
I think that's one of a good trait to not overthink, because fear comes from overthinking as well kan sih sebenarnya. Having thought is okay, kayak strategic, tapi kalau pas things don't go well, things turn sour, not overthinking is a great recipe for striving forward.
Why do you think you don't overthink? Is it why do you think you don't overthink? Because that's not something that many people have. They still have that confidence and that fear. Is it with how you grew up, atau the people having that network and ecosystem, or what do you think, or is this something that's been in you always, Mas Haidar?
Pernah in a stage where, of course, one of the businesses I made, Momo Milk waktu itu, lagi bagus-bagusnya, udah jalan setahun, sales were coming in, vastly amount of puluhan juta rupiah as a student, sudah ambil cicilan sana sini gitu karena juga orang duit kaget gitu kan. Sempat terus harus tutup karena ada salah satu tetangga yang nggak suka. Long story short, ngerasain tuh overthinking di situ tuh. And I felt that enak banget ya gitu ya. If what happens if this, what happens if that. Terus pada akhir-akhir ini coba larinya ke buku ya. As I'm referred juga ada Blink dari Malcolm Gladwell, ada juga Don't Believe Everything You See from Joseph Nguyen. Pada akhirnya membenarkan gitu, fear, uneasiness, being unpleasant is due to overthinking gitu. Jadi waktu itu memang instinctively confident in myself, tapi pun ada saatnya pas lagi jatuh kepikiran ada gitu. Sekarang karena udah ngerti situasinya, I am more mature, I know myself better. I think I have the on and off button to, okay, I'm overthinking this, let's just forget about it. pass it go. Yang penting yakin. Dan I'm a firm believer bahwa di bisnis tuh banyak X factor sih. Ya,
And you can't control those X factors.
Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, mau A, mau B, mau you can be the smartest person in the room, you can be the best person in the room. If divine intervention doesn't say so, then apapun terjadi. You see, so much luck factor in business, so many X variables in business. So I always think that I try what I can do as an individual to strive as hard as I can. Tapi kalau emang doesn't turn out well, ya udah kita udah coba gitu. And I believe that one success out of 1,000 or millions of trials dan percobaan, I think that one success can turn things around 180 degrees. And all it takes is one success.
Dari perjalanan tadi dari SMA ke Momo Milk terus beberapa brand kemudian, tapi kan akhirnya muncullah es teh di 2018 ya. Kalau nggak salah. In the midst of building Momo Milk and your other brands, the ups and the downs juga tadi, bisa cerita nggak what led you to es teh di 2018 dan konsep ini sebenarnya, Mas Haidar?
Ini bicara soal the X factor tuh, es teh tuh I'm a living proof that it does exist ya. X factor ini ya. Jadi udah ada, waktu itu ada Forestry, ada Momo Milk, ada Moza, ada Rainier juga tuh. Rainier tuh by the way it's a famous coffee shop in Bogor. We sell the most expensive es kopi susu 40.000 tapi laku, thank God. Jadi iseng, receh banget, kayak ngobrol kayak gini gitu kan. Berempat, kita bikin yuk brand yang bisa bawa nih. Maksudnya tuh sangat-sangat nationalism gitu kan. Kita mana nih brand Indo, biasa kan anak muda kan. Gak ada nih yang keluar gitu, yang keren gitu kan. Kita bikin apa ya gitu. Oh ternyata kan karena berempat kami ini punya background di F&B. The information atau data says that di tempat kita teh tuh pasti top 5 selling items. Mau itu konsepnya susu, mau konsepnya jus, mau konsepnya coffee shop, es teh itu pasti top 5. Itu Indonesia banget lah. Udah kita bikin yang itu yuk, es teh gitu. Apa namanya? Es teh aja gitu, biar jelas gitu. Terus ada Indonesianya. Biar apa? Biar Indonesia gitu. Sesimpel itu kan. That's the name Es Teh Indonesia. Gitu. Kita buka rame di pameran gitu karena booth-nya tuh Es Teh Indonesia, jualannya teh dan itu laku banget. Ceritakan laku banget. Hari pertama semua tenan lihat kita kok rame sendiri nih booth Es Teh Indonesia gitu. Terus hari kedua semua jualan es teh. Booth-booth yang jualan takoyaki lah, jualan sandwich lah, jualan ayam geprek lah, mereka jual es teh tapi tetap brand kita masih paling rame gitu. Jadi that's an X factor gitu kan. Terus modal 8 juta juga. Terus ya sempat kita pindah ke Blok M, sepi. Terus kita sempat coba kaji lagi, mungkin ada angle yang kita belum lihat gitu. Bukalah di Bogor. Kita bikin agak gedean, agak besar, terus ada tulisan mulai dari 5.000 Thai tea gitu. Langsung antri, berat gitu. Terus rasa bersalahnya di mana? Karena waktu itu ini nama Es Teh Indonesia. Tapi kok top selling item kita kok Thai tea gitu. What's going on nih? Kita salah nih. Ini nggak boleh kayak gini nih. Balik lagi ke purpose. We want this to be very Indonesian dan semangat semangat kebangsaannya gitu. Akhirnya kita rumuskan sebuah resepi. Kita bikin es teh susu Nusantara. Oh, kalau Jepang punya matcha, kalau India punya chai masala, Timur Tengah ada karakti gitu, Thailand punya Thai tea gitu, mungkin Malaysia punya teh tarik gitu. Kok Indonesia yang peminum teh banget tapi kok nggak ada yang khas gitu. Akhirnya kita racik tuh. Namanya es teh susu Nusantara, which is basically bold thick black tea, susu, milk and brown sugar. Gitu yang gula aren lah gitu. Kita masukin rame, and then COVID strike, X factor. everybody was going grab and go, which our model, which our business was grab and go as well. TikTok
Yeah.
came about. Everybody was scrolling through TikTok, and we were the first. I would have to say we were the first business to actually use TikTok as a platform to scale and show our business.
Yeah.
Dulu awalnya kan TikTok kan apa sih alay joget-joget apa sih? Ingat nggak awal-awal kan
Iya,
kayak
iya. Belum
Belum
kayak
gitu.
sekarang lah gitu.
kita coba deh waktu itu jadiin apa platform buat show the business gitu kan. I created some content viral. Franchisees were signing up.
Yep.
They were opening. They wanted to open Este. There were also a few business people that their business was impacted by COVID, so they had to pivot.
Yeah.
Hotel owners, restaurants yang fokus ke dine-in,
Yeah.
many businesses lah. Clothing. Akhirnya mereka coba cari yang perfect model for COVID. And X Factor ya akhirnya Este Indonesia, we scaled. Terus kita juga join sama Rans, sama Nagita dan sebagainya. We scaled again. So I think paling modalnya 8 juta gitu.
Iya.
Tapi itu yang paling menghasilkan dari all the businesses that I have. Yang modalnya bisa miliaran.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jadi bagaimana 8 juta bisa menghasilkan sales yang paling besar gitu.
Yeah.
Sedangkan yang miliaran itu enggak ya
Nggak.
oke gitu. Nah, that's one way.
To that point, I want to touch on a few things tentang experience-nya Mas Haidar di
Yeah.
Este. I find the values di Este itu very interesting dan keren. Apa value statement-nya kan sikat kan?
Ya,
gitu
sikat,
ya.
yes.
Sederhana atau simple, integrity,
Yeah.
Kebaikan or kindness,
Yes.
ambition or ambisi, adaptive sama tim atau teamwork
Yeah, yeah.
Mas Haidar.
Yeah.
Bisa cerita nggak how did you and your management team come up with these values for Este, Mas Haidar?
So we had a 3-day workshop. They were professionals that could create company values. So the higher management, we were plotted in different groups, and each group had to give reference to what company do we want to be, or what company inspired us. Ada yang dari Apple, ada yang dari Google, ada yang dari KFC, ada yang dari McDonald's, and what do these companies have in common? What values do they stand for?
Yeah.
Tulis semua gitu kan. And what values that we have now as a team that comes organically, naturally gitu.
Yeah.
And of course dari founders ya pastikan.
Yeah.
So the values that we have now and the values that we aim for. And pada akhirnya in the 3-day workshop keluarlah, kita ternyata Este itu sederhana, simple gitu. If you have a tough decision or a lot of decisions, find the simplest way. Karena we were one of the group were inspired by Apple yang very
Simple is the one that I find most interesting sebenarnya karena Mas Haidar juga atau sederhana. You've mentioned I think in a few other places how you really value simplicity atau sederhana. I guess itu baik untuk produk atau juga untuk decision making or anything. It applies to everywhere. Ya, simple ya Mas Haidar.
pada akhirnya nggak usah overthinking juga kan.
Iya,
Simple
iya,
apa?
iya. Tapi has thinking things, not overthinking atau thinking about things from that framework, sederhana atau simple, itu has it been very beneficial menurut to your running the business, Mas Haidar?
Definitely, to be honest, I had 2 phases of a portion of my life where founder mode, it was more simple.
Yep.
And I was pushed to take things further to become more corporate. It was not as simple. And what I found was effective is simple lebih enak sih.
Yeah.
Dan it works for me.
Yeah. Corporate malah too complex
Too
kadang-kadang.
complex. Kadang jadinya everything's going so slow. We're blaming each other, silos, departments are blaming each other. Ini harus gini, administrasi gini, email gini. I don't know because I haven't worked in a big corporate company at all kan. Tapi pada akhirnya pas dengar teman-teman yang di corporate juga kok ngalamin hal yang sama gitu. Then why do you have to become corporate if you guys experience the same pain as us? Gitu. Ya udah pada akhirnya ya we do what we do gitu dan we're a simple company ya.
Yeah.
Jadi we're such a young company, baru 7 tahun juga kan. Jadi we're still very young, kayak coba lah gitu dah. Tapi one way mungkin selama aku masih jabatnya sebagai direktur utamanya, and I like to make things simple and quick. Jadi kayaknya kebawa juga gitu kan, gitu.
Talking about scaling atau branding, tadi
Yeah.
Mas Haidar juga mention about marketing or branding the business gitu.
Yeah.
Juga sempat partner sama Rans dan di STN in the past you marketed or you've worked with other figures as well. What's the key to scaling and branding, and how do you measure the ROI? Karena kan hal-hal kayak gini kadang-kadang atau mungkin seems like from the outside ngukurnya susah gitu ya untuk ROI-nya. How do you view the effectiveness, or how do you approach the strategy from a marketing or branding side?
Yeah. Definitely, I can say that we scaled pretty quickly. Kan?
Yeah.
We call it a blitz scale. Kan?
Blitz scale, yeah.
Eric Rice kan. It's a tech thing that we implemented in our F&B business gitu. But definitely, I can say this: speed without system is suicide. So it's back again. It's the control bit, kan? Information control.
Yep.
The control bit that we gotta really strengthen. And it's not rocket science ya. Kayak it's basic management, SOPs, training. Tapi values definitely is the energy itu, the value-nya tuh dari ya you can use download SOPs from the internet, tapi banyak kan it's the energy that brings in the values and the character of the company gitu.
Yeah.
Pada akhirnya what made us scale was first the X factor was the COVID, and the business model worked. Satu franchisee senang akhirnya buka 3, akhirnya buka 4, buka 5 gitu. Refer ke temannya gitu. So we scaled really quickly, and the purpose and the aim was to actually scale fast. China's been doing it. Brands all over the world are doing it. Gitu. McDonald's has 99% of McDonald's is franchisee operated. We got apa lagi sih Cody Coffee yang di bawah juga kan itu franchise model as well gitu. But really, we didn't want to be a company that scaled and then udah gitu kan. Tapi how to make it sustainable gitu kan. How to make this into 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years gitu kan. And comes back to the systems bit gitu. The boring bit of management kan. Training, SOPs, monitoring gitu kan. I think luck was on our side, but we did have a great team. I had great people in my team. We had a opportunity to open 60 outlets in a month.
Wow.
We got a Muri record.
Yeah.
Most opening stores in a day was 30 stores in a day. We took the opportunity kan. And the momentum was there, jadi why not? Gas aja gitu. And so scale without system is suicide, and definitely speed without the right people is also is heading for a disaster.
Terkait konsep capital atau modal kan mungkin banyak teman-teman yang masih lagi kerja dan tapi sebenarnya mau keluar dari professional life dan jadi pengusaha gitu. Tapi mereka kira kan sebenarnya gue kalau mau jadi pengusaha gue butuh modal 200 juta atau 500 juta atau 1 M gitu. Tapi contohnya misalnya Mas Haidar bisa menghasilkan es teh dengan modal 8 juta, and I think a few other businesses yang ada yang besar tapi ada yang juga yang cukup sederhana atau cukup relatively less modalnya. What advice would you give to people about should having enough capital be a blocker towards someone pivot atau terjun jadi entrepreneur, or how do you approach that? How would you approach that problem if you were a professional now, or how should people think about that, Mas Haidar?
It is definitely way more trickier if you are a professional and you want to pivot kan.
Oh, karena Mas Haidar dari kecil udah,
Yeah.
this is the only thing you know ya, jadi pengusaha gitu.
If I did have what I have now, a family,
Yeah.
son, daughter,
Yeah.
and I had to pivot, I would, rethink 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But basically, it's my advice would do things very slowly. Kali ya. Makanya then again, back again, it depends on what age are you and
Yeah.
and how far do you have that passion, you have that grit gitu kan, you have that fire, do you have that thunder in you gitu kan.
Yeah.
Tapi balik lagi gitu I think it's if you're creative enough as an entrepreneur kan, money, you can use other people's money. That's one way of thinking things gitu. And pasti ada dong yang mungkin om lo kaya atau temennya bapak lo kaya atau siapapun yang kaya gitu. Itu kan ada degree-nya kan.
Iya.
Ke siapa kenal siapa pasti if you look
Within
into your
2-3 degrees of
yes,
connection gitu ya.
there should be some, but will you go that extra mile to lupain rasa malu terus ketemu bawa proposal.
Yep.
Kan orang udah kayak ngapain gue gengsi atau
Ya.
takut ditolak gitu. Nah gitu-gitu kan sebenarnya hal simple. Jadi for me is
Jadi bukan alasan ya
bukan
sebenarnya.
alasan.
Ya.
Because other people have money, gitu
I see.
kan.
I see.
They can use that money.
Got it. We just need that hunger and proactivity.
Bener gak sih?
Dan willing to be criticized juga ya,
Yeah,
atau
of
ya
course,
malu
yeah.
juga ya.
I'm living proof. I did that gitu dulu.
Mas Haidar juga kayak
I
gitu?
was knocking on doors. Maksudnya dulu istri waktu zaman pacaran punya teman yang bapaknya kaya, sempat juga tawarin kan bapaknya Erik ya, bawa proposal gitu. Waktu itu mau bikin perumahan. Maksudnya sampai degree itu gitu kan.
Iya. Sampai wow, oke.
Punya pacarnya punya teman yang bapaknya kaya, gue samperin.
Wah, padahal nggak kenal sebelumnya atau
Kenal
apa?
sih,
Kenal
cuman
tapi ya jauh lah gitu. Oh shoot. Oke, kita harus. Oke.
You gotta go that extra mile, you gotta have that thunder.
That's a great lesson. Got it. Oke, jadi itu soal duit. Nah, soal partner, kan tadi ada co-founder juga. Mau itu cari partner yang pas tuh kayak
Yes,
gimana tuh Mas Haidar?
That is tricky. Sampai sekarang banyak lesson learn-nya.
Ada ya lesson learned-nya?
Ada banget. Sampai sekarang juga ada gitu. It's really tricky. Basically it's sama kayak cari istri ya, susah gitu ya. Tapi it's all about gut feelings ya akhirnya, kayak intuition, nyaman nggak sama nih orang gitu kan. Kan ada banyak cara, theoretically cari yang nggak nyambung. Maksudnya cari yang skill setnya yang lo nggak ada dia ada gitu. Terus harus things on paper. Cuman pada akhirnya intuitively lo nyaman nggak sih sama nih orang gitu kan.
Yeah.
And the four founders of Esteh gitu, itu sampai sekarang kita udah 7 tahun bareng. Itu nyaman-nyaman aja. Selama memang harus ada siapa yang pada akhirnya memutuskan soal strukturnya gitu. Terus juga purpose-nya sama nggak gitu.
Ya,
Terus sering-sering diskusi soal tidak hanya di bisnis tapi juga life-nya gimana gitu.
Ya.
Kan umurnya ada yang umur mungkin mendekati 40, ada yang masih 30-an gitu. Lu mau berapa lama di sini gitu. And I think it's belajar juga. Kita punya tim legal. Oh Pak, harus ada shareholder agreement, exit strategi kayak gimana gitu. The bad conditionsnya kayak gimana gitu. Juga di partner ada juga di Reindeer gitu kan. Oh dia yang lebih fokus ke sana, lebih ngurusin day to day-nya. Of course, she gets the bigger portion. It's tricky, and it's not easy. Sekarang juga masih cari partners juga gitu kan. Tapi sekarang mungkin lebih mungkin strict on paper harus seperti apa gitu kan. And pengen banget sih punya bisnis yang autopilot banget. Tapi I don't know if that can happen ya. dengan I don't know, masih belajar.
You talked about, I think a few times you mentioned instinct atau intuition.
Yes.
Dalam pertimbangan atau untuk ambil keputusan, how much do you factor intuition versus tadi yang on paper atau data? Itu kan dari buku juga bilang intuition is important ya. Tadi yang buku yang Mas Haidar sempat quote tadi. Tapi the balance between intuition sama data, kan data juga pasti nggak mungkin cover 100% dari informasi yang kita butuhkan kan juga. So how do you balance that in your mind, within your team? Gimana tuh untuk ambil keputusan, Mas Haidar?
I usually see how big of a problem, how big is the problem first gitu kan. If it's a really critical problem, I would probably spend more time on thinking about it gitu. So what I usually do is ICB, information, control, and buffer. So I get the information, the data, everything that has to do with the business. I usually see it through. And the control side is which lane do I pick, and what are the things that we have our hands on that we can control gitu. And what I mean with the last part is buffer is if things do not go well, then what do I have yang bisa nge-buffer hal ini dan ini biar nggak collapse atau my decision would be wrong gitu. Itu udah ada standard ICB yang gue pakai gitu kan, information, control, buffer. If it's a decision I have to make fast, usually it goes with instinct. If I do have trouble deciding, I usually turn to people that I trust, and which are my partners yang punya skill set beda-beda atau my management team yang lebih tahu gitu. And then I decide on what will happen gitu. Jadi balik lagi ya, in real cases, it's always data driven or your instinct. Tapi pada akhirnya 80% of the time when I'm in founder mode, it's like 80% instincts. Tapi when you're in corporate mode and things go slowly, kan ST kan 10, 100, 200, 500, terus 1000, terus sekarang sempat turun lagi nih. Ini kan calon-calon kalau gua nggak founder mode lagi, I don't decide things fast. Ini bisa lebih jatuh lagi gitu. So the control is there and the buffer is there. I usually be beyond the founder mode again, gitu kan. Gua break things lagi. Pak, udah bikin aja gitu. Let's say sekarang maca lagi rame, udah bikin brand maca lagi. Oh tapi nggak
sebanyak mikir, langsung aja.
Datanya ada. Ya ada di sekitar kita, semua orang minum maca. Di IG orang posting soal maca, ya nggak sih? Maca, maca. It's a no brainer gitu. And we can decide apa brandnya udah yang terkenal apa ya di Blok M, ada yang di Gading Serpong, ada terus kita lihat di luar negeri juga udah bagus. Bukan maca rame gitu.
Tapi how do you then recruit the right people yang bisa agile terhadap kondisi yang berubah kayak gini atau approach yang berubah kayak gini? Because if you're doing this corporate method, but then you have to go into founder atau startup mode lagi, kan jadi berubah kan nanti timnya Mas Haidar itu gimana tuh Mas Haidar?
Honestly ini kan aku baru bikin yang founder mode terus corporate mode udah mulai stabil. Nah sekarang aku lagi break lagi nih. Tapi one thing that I've noticed is selama kita kasih tahu ke tim kita, guys, gua mau founder mode lagi nih. Gua mau bikin brand banyak lagi. Kita akan break things. Lo jangan ngeluh ya, gitu ya intinya. Lo harus ngurusin 2-3 brand, nggak apa-apa ya, gitu ya. Kasih tahu aja dulu di awal. Kalau pun emang nggak kuat, tapi balik lagi ke value, kita kan ada adaptasi. Kita ada ambisi, kita ada teamwork gitu. Jadi pada akhirnya you wanna ride the same train as me or you wanna go separate ways, tapi ya ada juga faktor itu juga gitu. Tapi pada akhirnya harus ngomong dulu gitu.
Jadi emang harus di preempt dulu, tapi you better be ready to ride on this train lah gitu.
It's an obstacle that we face together as a team. And I think what makes a great leader is one that can know what is going to happen in a year or 2 years. Will have a vision. And if you don't tell your team now, ini kan ada kaca spion kan, kanan kiri kan, untuk kontrol. It's the control bit. Kita lihat kanan kiri, kalau kita mau nabrak gitu kan, kita harus kasih tahu, walaupun sakit kan, mungkin harus
beloknya agak
dan
tajam
sakit,
gitu.
tajam. Mungkin ada yang kuat belok, ada yang lompat dari mobil gitu kan. Terserah gitu. Cuman kalau mau belok, ayo kita beloknya bareng dan it's not gonna be it's gonna be a really hard turn. Dan ada yang mental pastinya. I don't expect everyone to be on board, tapi if you're on board, kita harus seperti ini. If you're not, I'm sorry gitu.
Got it. Your experience with Este and Momo Milk, Reindeer Coffee and all, your Mas Haidar tuh udah heavily di industri F&B ya. What's the future of F&B? Apakah bakal butuh inovasi atau kan kadang-kadang orang kalau mau buka F&B kan, like you said earlier tadi, it's damn hard untuk running F&B. Apa inovasi atau adjustment yang that people have to make if they wanna still be relevant di dunia F&B, dan how do you see the industry changing, berkembangnya akan kayak gimana Mas Haidar di 5-10 tahun ke depan?
Definitely what I see now, dan gua amat sayangkan adalah owners F&B, they usually stop at the brand. Jadi begitu brandnya terkenal apa gitu, udah gitu. Padahal yang fundamentally harus dibangun adalah sistemnya, gitu kan. How to scale to the next level, how to create more ecosystem, how to create more branches, and how we scale to become big. Kan gaming, if you want to be big, you gotta scale in F&B gitu. Definitely, a lot of young people are looking into the F&B scene because it's fun, it's high profile, it's everywhere on TikTok and social gitu. What do you want to be? I want to open a coffee shop. Itu udah umum banget gitu. It is nice to have young Indonesians to create more F&B gitu kan. I think it's what you mentioned about, it's a way to tell stories about our country to other nations gitu kan. We know Thailand karena ada program Spice Up dari programnya the government of Thailand. Kita tahu Tom Yum, kita tahu Thai tea. We know the culture of a nation from the food. Japan, sushi and such. So it would be nice if we get some entrepreneurs that can, really scale the business, Padang food or I don't know, penyet, ayam goreng gitu, es teh gitu kan. So the market is definitely there. And just one thing that do people that want to invest in F&B, you gotta have your purpose right, and you gotta create the boring stuff, which is the SOPs and the systems. Man, you gotta scale gitu. If you stop at the brand, gue berhasil bikin brandnya keren gitu, and then you don't know what to do next, or you just stop there, I think it's a waste of potential gitu. Jadi 5 to 10 years ahead. Sekarang lagi serunya adalah lagi zamannya elevated local cuisine. Sekarang lagi rame di situ. Masakan oma lagi naik lagi gitu kan. Masakan daerah gitu. Itu yang harus kita narasikan bareng-bareng sih. Kenapa ayam bakar lebih enak dibanding let's say Colonel's Fried Chicken gitu.
Promoting our
Iya,
local
iya.
food.
Rendang itu punya potential besar gitu. Mungkin kita terlalu banyak ribut ya, ini karena banyak suku itu harusnya rendang dinaikin, harusnya apa empe-empe gitu. Kalau kita milih aja mana yang kita bisa narasikan bareng-bareng, can be like Thailand.
Yeah.
Ya, Tom Yum, terus ada Pad Thai, ada Thai tea.
Terus kita support.
Iya, support, I think. Ya, you know more than me lah soal ada siapa yang harus didorong dari
Mas Haidar, would you ever stop being an entrepreneur or a builder? Kan selain ST juga Mas Haidar juga bangun Paddle Life barusan. Would you ever stop? Kan tadi kita juga di awal ngomongnya ini tuh addiction, ini tuh it's in your genes, you have the bug lah. Itu Mas Haidar akan terus jadi entrepreneur ya? Atau kayak gimana tuh Mas Haidar?
I don't know definitely I don't know. Tapi pasti nggak bakal jadi orang tua yang diam di rumah sih pasti. That I know, that I am sure of gitu. Karena banyak cerita teman-teman juga ya, di IO juga kan, bapaknya udah 70, they're still creating things gitu. They're still, investing in things gitu. They can't stand still gitu. They can't sit down and have a no, your dad is still also teaching as well, kan he's trying to create an impact. Sempat pikir ya, kalau gua jual semua nanti live a happy life, tapi sesenang-senangnya apa kan pasti it gets boring juga kan pasti kan. Ya, tapi we don't know. Tapi I think when I have my financials down, kids are settled, kayaknya tetap cari karya sih gitu ya.
Pasti
What
ya.
can I
Create something.
create
build
something sih. It's the builder's mindset as you mentioned, which is build in blue.
Yeah. Nah, and final
Mantap.
question. Tadi kita ngomong beberapa banyak hal, values, systems, X factor. Tapi dari pengalamannya Mas Haidar yang udah lama banget, what's the one trait that you would say is the most important trait about being two parts, an entrepreneur and a leader of a company, Mas Haidar?
A trait.
Yeah. What does someone need to have in order? If someone could only have one thing, or if you had to have one thing as an entrepreneur, what would it be, Mas Haidar?
Wah, gimana ya? Wait. I gotta think of this. One trait. One trait. Trait. Yeah. Okay. If I had to boil it down to one word, is discipline.
Discipline.
Yeah.
In the midst of all that blitz scaling, tapi tetap disiplin ya paling
Discipline.
penting ya.
Yes.
Wow.
Discipline. I mean, it covers, proactiveness.
Yeah.
Covers being hungry.
Ketemu temennya, omnya, pasti
Iya.
tadi ya. Wow. Yeah.
And discipline also covers being consistent juga kan.
Yeah.
Pertumbuhan juga kan datang dari konsisten terus kan.
Yeah.
So I think discipline is, hopefully it covers, discipline definitely covers being proactive, being consistent, persistent, being hungry, being ambitious. I think karena lo udah punya ambisi tapi nggak punya disiplin juga,
Yeah. It doesn't
make sense. It won't get anywhere gitu kan.
Mas Haidar, thank you so much for this.
Thank you for inviting me.
That was the mind of Haidar Wurjanto, serial entrepreneur and founder of Esteh.
Kalau kalian suka dengan episode kali ini dan pengen tahu lebih lanjut soal Mind of a Builder, subscribe and follow our social medias @BuildInBlue. I'll see you in the next episode. Have an awesome day.